Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Yasoda Nandana Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana Jaya Jasoda Nandana Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana Jaya Jasoda Nandana Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana Jaya Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Muna Tiravanachari Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Yasoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yasoda Nandana Jaya Jasoda Nandana Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana Jaya Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayom Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya, Asto Tarasya Sisama. His Divine Grace, Dr. Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Caritamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 17. Texts 57 and 58 are up on the board, and we're going to read a few more verses as well through to text 64. Srivas Panditera Shtane Ache Aparadha Tata Yata Tenhu Yadi Karena Prashada Tabe Tora Habe E Papa Vimonchana Yadi Puna Aiche Nahi Kara Acharana Srivas Panditera Shtane Ache Aparadha Tata Yata Tenhu Yadi Karena Prashada Tabe Tora Habe E Papa Vimanchana Yadi Puna Aiche Nahi Kara Acharana Vaishnavis? Srivas Panditera of Srivas Thakur, Sthane at the lotus feet, Ache there is, Aparadha offense, Tata there, Yaha go, Tenho he, Yadi if, Karena does, Prasada blessings, Tabe then, Torah your, Habe there will be, A this, Papa Vimochana immunity from sinful reaction. Yadi, if, Puna, again, Aiche, such, Nahikara, you do not commit, Acharana, behavior. Translation. You have committed an offense at the lotus feet of Srivas Thakur. The Lord said, first you must go there and beg for his mercy. And then if he gives you his blessings and you do not commit such sins again, you will be freed from these reactions. Please repeat. You have committed an offence at the lotus feet of Srivas Thakur. The Lord said, you must first go there and beg for his mercy. And then if he gives you his blessings, and you do not commit such sins again, you will be freed from these reactions. Text 50, no purport, so text 59. Then the Brahmana, Gopal Chapal, went to Srivas Thakur and took shelter at his lotus feet. And by Srivas Thakur's mercy, he was freed from all sinful reactions. Text 60, translation. Another Brahmana also came to see the kirtan performance, but the door was closed and he could not enter the hall. He returned home with an unhappy mind. This is text 61. But on the next day he met Lord Caitanya on the bank of the Ganges and spoke to him. Text 62. That Brahmana was expert in talking harshly and cursing others. Thus he broke his sacred thread and declared, I shall now curse you, for your behavior has greatly aggrieved me. Text 63, translation. The Brahmana cursed the Lord. You shall be bereft of all material happiness. When the Lord heard this, he felt great jubilation within himself. Omagana timanandasya gananjana shalakaya chakshu unmanitam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhete garim yat kripa tamaham vande Sri Gurum dinatarnam. Vande Sri Krishna Caitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaudadaya Pushpabanto Chitro Sandhu Tamonudo. I offer my most respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are just like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gaudadesh to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. So just to refresh, I think if we're following this, we will know that this envious so-called Brahmana, Gopal Chapal, had placed some items for the worship of the goddess Bhavani at the door of Srivas Thakur. To indicate that he was actually secretly worshipping the consort of Lord Shiva for material reasons, as many people were doing in Bengal at that time. But, and those items like liquor and hibiscus flowers, vermilion, some rice grains, and other items. When Srivas Thakur opened his door in the morning and he saw those items there, he immediately called for all the respectable gentlemen in the neighbourhood and invited them to come and see, being very, very transparent and honest. He said, look, gentlemen, here I am. I'm worshipping the goddess Bhavani. So, of course, none of the respectable gentlemen in the neighbourhood who knew Srivas Thakur and his brothers very well accepted that because they understood he was a pure Vaishnava. And the gentlemen became very upset and said, what rascal has done this? So, and they immediately called for a cleaner to sweep away all the items and to purify the doorway of Srivas Thakur with water and a slurry of cow dung. So this was a grave offence which Mahaprabhu and, of course, this Gopal Chapal, as a result, contracted leprosy and was suffering a great deal. So, so this is the background to this particular pastime, and of course, one of many warnings to all of us to be very careful and offenceless in our dealings with our fellow devotees and even with people in general. And there are many wonderful pastimes because Srivas Thakur, he is the personality, one of the 5 members of the Panchatattva. And he has been identified as the incarnation of Narada Muni. And some acharyas also give reasoning that he is also Krishna's funny Brahmana friend, Madhu Mangal, within the body of Srivas Thakur. Srivas is pure devotee, Tatastha Shakti or Tatastha Jiva, but pure unalloyed devotee of the Lord, and very, very dear to Mahaprabhu. He was approximately 30 years older than Lord Chaitanya, and he was very good friends with Advaita Acharya and his family. He is one of 4 brothers: Sripati, Srinidhi, and Sri Ram. And Sri Ram, the youngest of the 4 brothers, is Parvata Muni incarnation, who, as we know, very good friends with Narada Muni. They often travel together. So these were the 4 brothers, all very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And their family originally was from Sri Hatta in West Bengal, but they moved to Navadvip. And Srivas Thakur's house was only 200 yards from the house of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi, Sachi Mata. And of course, it's famous as being the place where Mahaprabhu performed his nocturnal kirtans for a full year before going public, you could say, and taking the kirtan out of the house into the streets of Navadvip. And that house is also famous as Kol Bangadanga, which means the place where the kol or madanga drum was broken. Because at one point, due to complaints from some of the neighbours, the Qazi did send some of his soldiers, and one madanga drum was broken. So, and Srivas Thakur's wife's name is Malini Devi, and she is none other than Ambika, one of Krishna's nurses in Goloka. So, and Malini is considered, along with Sachi Mata and Vishnu Priya, those ladies, and also Advaita Acharya's wife, Sita Thakurani, they were the foremost Vaishnavis of the time of Mahaprabhu. There were many others, of course, as well, but they're amongst the foremost. So many, and it's interesting that after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas at just age 24, Srivas Thakur and his brothers could no longer bear separation. Of course, they used to go yearly to Jagannath Puri to see the Lord, but they could no longer stay or they chose not to stay any longer in Navadvip. Their hearts were broken because Mahaprabhu had moved away. It didn't have the same feeling as when he was there. So they moved and they lived in Kumara Hatta after Lord Chaitanya's taking of sannyas. So, and of course there are many wonderful pastimes which occurred at Srivas Angam, which is, as many of us who have visited Mayapur know, just a short walk down the road from Srila Prabhupada's Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir. Very close. And one of those pastimes, very famous, is Srivas Thakur's niece, Narayani Devi, who was only 4 years old at the time, was offered Mahaprabhu's remnants, prasad remnants. But first, the Lord asked her, Narayani, chant Krishna, Krishna. So she chanted Krishna's names with such feeling, such intensity, that profuse tears poured out of her eyes and she manifested other ecstatic symptoms. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so pleased with this little 4-year-old girl that he blessed her and she became the mother after she grew up and got married. She had a son, the great Vrindavan Das Thakur, the author of Caitanya Bhagavatam, who was the last disciple of Nityananda Prabhu and considered the most dear disciple of Nityananda Prabhu. So that was little Narayani. That also happened as the niece in the household of Srivas Thakur, her uncle. And of course, the Mahaprakash Leela, the great revelation, that also happened there. We've spoken about that on different occasions. And when Srivas Thakur, who was very liberal, was out and about on one occasion, he was just walking down the street in Navadvip and he heard verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam being recited. So he was drawn naturally to sit down in the assembly of people and listen to the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam reciter was a professional man by the name of Devananda Pandit. So he earned his living from reciting the Bhagavatam, but unfortunately his recitations were tinged with Mayavad philosophy. Nonetheless, Srivas Thakur, when hearing the beautiful verses of the Bhagavatam, became overcome with emotion and started to weep uncontrollably in the assembly. And that was too much for some of the disciples of Devananda Pandit. This person's crying. So they dragged Srivas out of the assembly, back out into the street. This was another great offence. Hati Mata, mad elephant, just as we have gardens here on New Govardhana that are being very nicely managed, but not too many elephants around here. But if there was one and they came into, I think we have the veggie garden, that's east and that's west, right? So we've got the west garden down there, yeah? And if all of our wonderful volunteers had spent a lot of time preparing the soil and planting seedlings, and all of a sudden a mad elephant comes in and just tears it all to pieces. Or we have our nice banana groves along the road here. So that can utterly destroy one's delicate devotional creeper if a mad elephant comes in. So this was another big offence that Devananda Pandit tolerated. He didn't object when his disciples took Srivas Thakur out of the assembly. He should have said something. He was the Pandit, he was the one delivering but he didn't. So he also had committed a big offence, and it was actually Vrakreshvara Pandit, who's famous for dancing continuously for 72 hours. He showed mercy to Devananda Pandit by explaining to him Srimad Bhagavatam according to Vaishnava principles, and cleared up all of his erroneous Mayavadi misinterpretations. And as Ramai Maharaj was saying in a class just a few weeks ago, Devananda Pandit was actually there in Krishna's pastimes. He is none other than Bhaguri Muni. And he used to recite the Vedas in Nanda Maharaj's house. So then he came back again as Devananda Pandit. So, let's see. And there is... Oh, and this is another famous pastime of Srivas Thakur. On one occasion, Mahaprabhu was visiting Srivas Thakur's house, and he said to him, Srivas, how is it you're maintaining this big household, but I never see you working? You never see... And Srivas said, well, I have a formula, my lord. If one day I don't get any foodstuffs and my family doesn't get to eat, he said, I clap my hands 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And Lord Caitanya said, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, if one day I don't get foodstuffs and we fast, no problem. If after 2 days we still don't get anything to eat, still no problem. And likewise, a 3rd day, but I vowed if I don't eat after 3 days, then I'll go and drown myself in the Ganges. And Lord Caitanya said, wow. And Mahaprabhu said that he more or less inferred that because Srivas Thakur and his family were so much engaged in Nam Sankirtan, it said that not only at night time, but during the day they were also chanting Hare Krishna regularly and for long periods of time. And they were using, Srivas Thakur was using what we call wampas, jajas, large metal kartals that sound like small cymbals played in time, from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song. So, because he was doing so much kirtan, Nam Sankirtan, the Yugadharma, then Krishna was making all arrangements for his sustenance, he and his family. And Mahaprabhu went on that Lakshmi Devi herself may have to beg, but you'll never have to beg. So that was the blessing of Mahaprabhu. So, we have sometimes philosophers like to reflect or speculate. How is it possible for the finite to ever comprehend the infinite? It is possible by the grace of the infinite. And that's why we see that karma, jnana, and ashtanga yogas are primarily effort-based, whereas bhakti is primarily grace-based. Not that aspiring devotees of Krishna don't also have to make an effort. We do both. Effort, but we also receive grace. And the example is often used of creatures. We have baby monkeys who have to make a serious effort to hang on, either underneath mother monkeys or on their backs as their mothers jump from tree branch to tree branch. But the kittens and the cubs of cats, they're carried by their mothers in their mother's jaws from one unsafe place to a safe destination. So devotees do both. We have to make the effort. No one else can daily hear and chant about Krishna and do some service to Krishna. But grace is coming down in a significantly greater proportion for Krishna's devotees. And there are many verses like that throughout Vedic literatures. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Is that tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratikurvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. Thank you. And similarly, Atashri Krishna namadina bhavadgrayam indriya seva mukhi jiva do swayameva spurat yada. Krishna says, I can never be understood as I am by the blunt material senses, but I reveal myself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto me. And yoginam api sarvesham matkatend antaratmanaha shadavam bhajate yomam sameyu yuktatamo mataha. Of all yogis, Krishna says, he who abides in me with complete faith, transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So, the difference, and especially in Mahaprabhu's sublime philosophy, he teaches that devotees can pray to Krishna. Can we be friends? Which is really unusual and unorthodox in most monotheistic Religions, God is seen as order supplier. There's not so much the concept, what can I do for you, but God, what can you do for me? And again, akama sabha moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogina yajita purusham param, from Srimad Bhagavatam, that whether one is full of material desires or desires liberation, one should, in all earnestness, worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, for the ultimate perfection of devotional service. So that is just like we may have there may be a big person in this world, and people for all different selfish reasons want to be friends with that big person who's vastly wealthy and very famous, very good-looking or whatever. But if someone comes and says, can we just be friends? What can I do for you? I don't want anything from you. I'm Aparama. I'm self-satisfied. But I'd like to be your friend. We could spend some time together. So that's very unusual. Sometimes very wealthy persons suffer from a fair amount of paranoia that the people around them just, are they really friends, or do they just want me for something that I have? So that is the unique offering of Caitanya Mahaprabhu in the bhakti tradition that he is presenting, emphasizing either Madhurya or Vatsalya or Sakya. Prem, love for the Supreme Lord, either as a lover or in parental affection or as friendship. So that is a very important aspect. I came across, doing research, back in 1977, there was a really interesting pastime. Srila Prabhupada was in Bombay. His health was deteriorating. One very senior member of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya from South India, who'd met Srila Prabhupada in South India and was very impressed, had a lot of regard for Srila Prabhupada, took it upon himself to fly from South India to Bombay, knowing Prabhupada was there, which in itself was unusual because very strict Brahmins, Vaishnavas, they don't very often, for example, get on an aeroplane and fly places. As many of us know, it can be a little awkward, uncomfortable, flying, sitting next to people that are eating meat, for example, drinking alcohol, watching all sorts of frivolous movies and so on. Nonetheless, this man took it upon himself, and he arrived in Bombay, and his only purpose was to meet Srila Prabhupada and to speak with him. So he came to the temple, and he asked to speak to Prabhupada alone, which was a little unorthodox because Prabhupada's health was not good, and for his own well-being and security. But Prabhupada assented to that, acquiesced to that request. There was no threat from this man. He was a well-wisher of Prabhupada. So, and he told the devotees afterwards regarding this conversation he had, he felt he needed to share something with Srila Prabhupada that perhaps Prabhupada didn't know. And that was that, first of all, he said, it pains me to see your divine grace not enjoying good health. And Prabhupada replied, Dukalayama Shashvatam, which means this material world is a place of misery and it's temporary. So the man said, you did something in 1975 at the request of your disciples. You allowed them to install a murti of you on the Lord's altar in your Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. And that is generally not done until after the Acharya leaves. And Prabhupada said, I know that. And the man, this Brahmin, who's vastly learned and very elevated, Sri Vaishnav, he said, you know, many very sinful persons are coming before your murti and they're praying to you to deliver them from their sinful reactions. And Prabhupada said, I know that also. And then Prabhupada completely astonished this man by saying, and after I leave, I will continue to accept their sinful reactions, because that is why I've come. And when I heard that, immediately we go to the story of Vasudev Dutt in the Caitanya Caritamrita, who also approached Lord Caitanya and asked him, my dear Lord, you're the Lord of the whole universe. You please transfer all of the sinful reactions of all the living entities in this universe onto my head, and I will stay here in this material world perpetually so that they can all go back home, back to Godhead, back to Vaikuntha, Goloka, like that. But Mahaprabhu said that, and he appreciated that sentiment. Bhava Grahi Janardana. Krishna knows our sentiments, what we're feeling, how we want to serve him and love him and ultimately go back to him. Even when the material world sometimes seems all against us, but Krishna appreciates our sentiment. So Mahaprabhu said that was not necessary, but he appreciated Vasudev Dutt's sentiment. So I was thinking of that in that regard to that amazing, just our estimation, our ability to try and somehow or other comprehend the greatness of Srila Prabhupada. It's just amplified when we hear. And I did find a little reference, because I thought when I heard that, I'm sure there's a reference, and there is, because in the last days of his life, Sripad Ramanuja, his disciples also wanted to create a murti of him, but he had not yet departed this realm. So I'll just read here. Taking pity upon them, Ramanuja accepted his disciples' request and ordered that expert sculptors be brought there to carve a stone deity in his likeness. After 3 days, the work was complete. Then the deity was bathed with water from the Kaveri river and installed upon a newly constructed altar. Yatiraj, which is another name of Ramanuja, then came slowly up to the deity and filled it with his potency by breathing into the crown of the head. Turning to his disciples, he said, "This is my second self. When I have cast off this body, you may worship this form instead of me." So, have I got time for a couple more points? Let's see. All right, so we're coming up to Lord Narasimhadev's appearance day on Wednesday, one of the major festivals in Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vaishnavism. You may be curious to know that it was in 1970 that Srila Prabhupada introduced the chanting of the Nrsimhadev prayers after every arti. He said that should take place. And the reason for that was that in 1970, in 2 major cities in North America, New York City and Los Angeles, and in Los Angeles it was on Hollywood Boulevard, that the devotees were regularly coming under physical attack by demoniac persons. people were physically attacking the Harinam Sankirtan devotees, because the devotees in those days were out on the street every day for up to 8 hours of Harinam. So demoniac people were getting really agitated. So Prabhupada introduced at that point, for the protection of his movement and his devotees, you should chant these prayers to Lord Narasimha. So, and perhaps, when Prabhupada established his first temple, 26 2nd Avenue, in the first 6 months after finally getting his own place, many wonderful achievements. Prabhupada achieved many wonderful things in that first 6 months. He initiated his first 20 disciples, foreign disciples. He started a regular Sunday love feast. He started outreach in the form of doing Harinam in not only Tompkins Square Park, but other parks near the temple. He took some of his early disciples, and Mukunda Maharaj is, of course, present for many of these wonderful early adventures, to the United Nations building, where the devotees sat on the footpath outside or stood and did Harinam, Sankirtan, with instruments. But then the security came and said, you can't sing and play music here. So nonetheless, Prabhupada and his small group of disciples stayed and chanted japa for some time outside the United Nations. Prabhupada performed the first, at least one, Vedic wedding ceremony. He started a free lunch program for the young men who took up residence at 26 2nd Avenue. And he also got approval from Macmillan and Co. that they would print his Bhagavad Gita as it is, all in the first 6 months. Right. So I'll leave a little time, everyone. I don't know if Bhakta Mike's here, or we can, I don't know if there is any questions or comments. Try and, otherwise, we can pray for everyone happy. All right. Jai. Thank you. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Go Premanandi Hari.